Welcome back to Vintage HLC Show and Tell. Today we're going to look at Rose and Poppy dinnerware that was offered by Colgate Palmolive Peat from the late 1920s to the late 1950s. There were two potteries involved with this line. The first was Crooksville China out of Crooksville, Ohio, and of course Homer Laughlin. So we'll start by looking at the pattern itself. We have a 9-inch dinner plate here with 3 sprigs. There's the largest one with the yellow rose, the poppies, the green and black leaves, the medium sprig, and then the smallest one. So the idea was pretty simple. You could take coupons from Octagon soap, collect them, and then redeem them for pieces or sets of Rose and Poppy. There were other companies involved, like Borden's. We see these labels that were taken off some milk cans. And there's Rose and Poppy in the center. I know that's probably going to be hard to see. On the right is a Virginia Rose stencil salad nappy. So there were other products involved besides Rose and Poppy. We'll look at this advertisement from the late 1920s. And we see Rose and Poppy here. This is Crooksville's Ivora shape. Ivora was introduced in 1927. And plain round shape with a rim. The hollowware have sweeping sides, rather top-heavy appearance. So this is a covered casserole with the Rose and Poppy design made by Crooksville. We'll look at the marking. Ivora, Crooksville China Company. This is from 1930. So Ivora refers to the shape. Now Homer Laughlin gets involved and uses some of these shapes. So if you've ever heard Ivora associated with Homer Laughlin, it stems from Crooksville. We can see some plain Ivora pieces here that Crooksville was also making for Colgate. And then up in the top, we see some Quaker pieces with a different pattern. We'll look at that again when I do a video on Quaker. But the point is that Homer Laughlin was already involved with Colgate at the same time that Crooksville was with Rose and Poppy. So Homer Laughlin starts sharing production of this line, and they use Ivora shapes. So this plate we looked at a moment ago is actually a Crooksville shape. It's not Quaker. It's very similar to Quaker. This one's dated 1943 from Homer Laughlin. If you take a Quaker plate, this is the Quaker plate, about the same diameter, they do not stack well together. And this may be the primary reason why they did not use Quaker. They just continued with the Ivora plates. They also did that with several other pieces. The Ivora teacup, which I don't have one to show you. It's very similar to the Brittany teacup. We'll look at the full assortment list here in a moment from the 1950s. This catalog comes from 1933, and it's talking about pieces that can be redeemed using Octagon soap coupons. And we'll open this up and look at some of the different products, because there's more than just dinnerware. You could get watches, you could get bakeware, cutlery, tinware, glassware. There's Rose and Poppy, and those are the Ivora teacups, very similar to Brittany, but they predate Brittany by a number of years. And there's some Quaker dinnerware made by Homer Laughlin. Some toys, some linens. But besides Octagon soap, we saw that Borden was involved, and we have Louisiana teas and coffees. This one's a year later, from 1934. Octagon, Borden, and Kirkman. Kirkman soap chips. And we see the lady up there with her Octagon coupons. I'm going to redeem them for all these products that are in this book. We've got silverware, jewelry, clocks, more cutlery, some toys, some guitars, linens, and on the back we see Rose and Poppy. Again, this is Crooksville, the Ivora shape. And these are the Ivora shape teacups and saucers. Now, Homer Laughlin would have shared in production at this time. It was around 1930 that Homer Laughlin gets involved with Rose and Poppy. As a matter of fact, we see here a purchase order from Colgate Palmolive Peat to Homer Laughlin, dated 1930. They're asking for 75,000 dozen Coop soup plates. These are just Coop soups. For $1.03 per dozen. And what's happening is Colgate is supplying Homer Laughlin with the Coop soup that they want. So it's the Ivora shape. And they're asking for a decoration 3 spray R Rose and Poppy, known as A26, size and shape to be exactly like sample given. So that what they've been given, of course, is the Ivora Coop soup. And it talks about the production. It says 60% of the order, ready to ship by December 1st, 1930, balanced to ship by February 1st, 1931. Interestingly, it says FOB Crooksville, and then somebody crosses that out, but to payment terms of net 30. So what they would do with pieces like this, they wouldn't offer them in sets, because the sets were pretty basic, like you see here, with just some plates, some small plates, a platter, maybe a nappy. So these extra pieces, like Coop soups, could be offered with new promotions. And we see one here from 1942. This comes from newspapers.com. And we see 3 of these Coop soups. And you would redeem 75 Octagon coupons for these. Finished in rich ivory glaze. You get 3 of them. I can't barely read that. You get 5 soups for every... Let's see if we can see what that says. And now you get 5 coupons on every box of Octagon granulated. So the Octagon granulated get 5 of those coupons that we saw over there a moment ago from the Octagon soap. Octagon premium stores. There were special stores that were set up that you could redeem these. You could fill out some order forms and have them shipped to you. There were redemption centers within stores. For example, in East Liverpool, Ohio, there was a furniture store that had a redemption center in it. So it's a good little marketing ploy to get people into your store to maybe look at some furniture potentially to buy at the same time they're redeeming for these premium pieces. So we have a Empress salad nappy with Rose and Poppy. And it says, let's see, this is your extra reward for using Octagon granulated and saving the coupons. And we see one of those right here. So this wouldn't have been part of the set. This is a special promotion that was going on. This is dated 1947. Cups and saucers. In the late 1930s, Colgate asked Homer Laughlin to produce a special cup and saucer set, again for another promotion. And what they did is they took Hudson, which had been discontinued by then. They add Republic embossing on the bottom, and pair it up with a Republic saucer. So those weren't part of the set initially. They were still using Ivora cups and saucers. But here you could have a special free cup and saucer, 5 coupons on every big box of Octagon granulated in the smart new, quote, Hudson shape. Well, Hudson had been introduced in 1908. It was an old shape. But for this promotion, it was something new. And some Rose and Poppy dinner plates for only 6 coupons. You get 1 9-inch plate. We see Ballard, I think that's baking mixes. Let's see, Ballard baking mixes, Ballard pancake mix, or Borden's milk. Virginia Rose stencil salad. You could redeem Octagon coupons for one of those. I don't want to get into this too much today. I want to do a special video on apple tree bowls. But apple tree bowls, we see several promotions here. You would use your Octagon coupons to get these apple tree bowls. 1935, 1935, 1935. Let's look at one real quick. These apple tree bowls come out as a result of Octagon soap or Colgate wanting them for these special promotions. We see 4 of the 5 sizes here. But this green glaze is also at the request of Colgate, and it's often called the Colgate green glaze. But we'll look at that later on. I don't want to get into that too much today. But those are just some of the special promotions that Homer Laughlin did for Colgate, most of which were centered around Rose and Poppy. This comes from January 1956. This is towards the end of the run. And we see a bunch of different pieces listed with treatment numbers. All these treatment numbers end with 24. They're part of group 24. I've talked a little bit about that before, how everything was put in group numbers early on. Quaker 4-inch plate. This would be trade size. So a 4-inch plate would be an actual 6-inch plate, like this one. So we see a Quaker 4-inch plate or 6-inch plate. Quaker, I'll just do actual size, 7-inch plate. Quaker 8-inch plate. Ivora 9-inch plate. They're still using the Ivora shape from Crooksville in 1956. Quaker 10-inch dinner plate. The Colgate Coop Soup, that's a special soup bowl that was made for the promotion. Quaker Fruit Cup, Quaker 36's Oatmeal, Quaker 36's Bowl. Those are very hard to find with Rose and Poppy on them. A 9-inch Baker, the 9-inch Nappy. Ivora 8-inch dish, that's your platter that came from Crooksville Ivora. They're still using the Crooksville shape. That's closer to 11 inches. And then we see, let's see, this is going to be a 13-inch Quaker platter and then a Republic platter, which is going to be 15 inches. Regular sauce boat, the gravy Fastian was long discontinued by then. The sauce boat we see here. So there's your Quaker shape with its flat top handle. This is dated 1955. We see a variant here. This is rather unusual. It's got some platinum trim on them. Most of your Rose and Poppy does not. We've got 2 small sprigs on one side, and on the other side we've got 3 small sprigs. So that's not typical. So this might have been done for another customer, because Colgate was pretty particular on the Rose and Poppy design. It should have looked something like this. And we see the covered sugar for Quaker. The creamer for Quaker. The 9-inch pickle dish from Nautilus. The Nautilus after dinner cup. The kitchen craft jug. And then we see some composition sets. Some of them use the Quaker teacups. Some of them use Hudson teacups with Republic number 8324. And so on. There's a St. Denis cup, which we've not looked at yet. St. Denis cups come from the late 1930s for Rose and Poppy. Just a plain saucer. This one's dated 1937. So you get all these different cups. Get the Ivora cup, the Quaker cup, the Hudson cup, the St. Denis cup. I think there's another one as well. There are all these added pieces. So it's a very eclectic line. And then we see some odd pieces here. We've got, let's see, it says Empress 10-inch nappy. The actual would be about 10 inches. Assorted patterns, CPP 107 blue, 108 green, 109 red. Those are the Empress stencil salads. So the assorted patterns mean different decals, but the stencils would be the same, and that CPP stands for Colgate Palmolive Peat. Some corresponding fruit cups, some Liberty plates, the large spaghetti bowls, 14.5 inches. There's even an applique set that uses dark green hollowware. So this was a pretty important customer and a pretty important line for Homer Laughlin. In 1931, Colgate placed a $1 million order to have Homer Laughlin create 12 million pieces. So that's basically a dollar per dozen. Look at a couple more advertisements, because I want to point this out. Let's see. This line, we see Rose and Poppy here. There's the Ivora teacups. But up here we see VR 235, which Richard Ratcher called Armand. And that's what you see here, with the 3 sprigs, pink roses, yellow poppies, white daisies, platinum trim. So it wasn't just Rose and Poppy that was made for Colgate. They made other dinnerware lines for them as well. We see Blue Willow here. This is not Homer Laughlin's Blue Willow, however. And this is from the 1950s. It's 1953. We see more products in the mix. We have the Louisiana coffee and tea, the Ballard cake mixes, Hearth Club baking powder, Octagon soap, Borden's milk, Raleigh cigarettes, Kirkman soap, La Rosa pastas, and Mrs. Filbert's margarine and mayonnaise. So you could get all the coupons from these products and get all these different pieces. Even in the 50s, there was more than just dinnerware. There was cutlery, there's more jewelry, kitchen utensils, all kinds of stuff. Cookware, radios, linens, rugs, drapes. So now we will just look at some shapes. This is the Ivora platter that was used by both Crooksville and Homer Laughlin. That's just a Quaker plate I was using for comparison. That's the Ivora plate, both Crooksville and Homer Laughlin. The Ivora casserole we saw before, this is only Crooksville. When Homer Laughlin took over, they switched over to the Quaker casserole. Rather unusual to see Rose and Poppy with any platinum trim. Usually it's just blank. But this is oven serve. Has its own treatment number in the lid, OS94. There's your Rose and Poppy decal. Oven serve marking. 6-inch plates, or if you go by the trade size, 4-inch plates. 1947. The St. Denis cup and saucer, special promotion. The Hudson, or modified Hudson, cup and saucer with a Republic saucer. The Empress, or Quaker, it's the same shape. Salad nappy, special promotion. And you'll find quite a few different kitchen craft pieces with Rose and Poppy. Here's the cake plate. And some salt and pepper shakers from Kitchen Craft. The Colgate jug. Sometimes you will see this referred to as an Ivora jug. It really has nothing to do with Ivora. It's more properly called a Colgate jug because it was made at their request in the late 1930s. We see the Rose and Poppy decal has a flat top handle to match the Quaker hollowware that was being made at the time, and this is from 1938. This Colgate jug was probably just an old blank from 1944. Someone, more than likely outside the company, gave it this pearlized glaze and gold handle. "10-inch plate using a Nautilus blank," which is rather unusual. You see the little indented line just inside the edge. Nautilus back stamp from 1936. Of course, we already looked at the Quaker sauce boats with the variations. And Virginia Rose with platinum trim. Not very common Rose and Poppy on Virginia Rose. This one's from 1941. I should mention, Richard Ratcher, in his book on Virginia Rose, calls this line Olivia. So if you were to go to eBay.com or any other website and type in Homer Laughlin Olivia, you're going to find a lot of these pieces. Although that is the name that he gives it. It's not a name I use that much. I use Rose and Poppy since Colgate used it, and Octagon soap used it, and Homer Laughlin used it. But you will see Olivia pop up quite a bit. And finally, I want to talk about these. These are Ivora shape lug soups that were made by Homer Laughlin. They all have Homer Laughlin marks on the bottom. They were intended to have Rose and Poppy decals, and I've never seen any with Rose and Poppy decals, which is somewhat odd. What I do find are decorations from other lines. So it was a pickup piece. So this would have been used in a Marigold set. This would have been used in a Republic set, and this would have been used in a Century set. So you will find these Ivora lug soups mixed in with other sets. And it has that same sweeping side to them that we see on Crooksville Ivora. So that's a little bit about Rose and Poppy. This is a pretty important line for Homer Laughlin. I said this about Blue Willow when I did that video, that we as collectors, we get caught up with Fiesta and Harlequin and Oven Serve and Kitchen Craft and Virginia Rose. We kind of overlook these others, but this was something that is somewhat overlooked, but still very important for the Homer Laughlin China Company. Next time, we're going to look at the Wells art glazes.